It is a new day. Light begins to dawn. Rays of life, giving energy, break forth in glorious splendor. It is the dawning of a new day in consciousness. The light of illumination begins to break upon you from within. You are a spiritual being, a light being. You have been endowed with 12 cosmic powers, 12 gifts of light: faith, strength, wisdom, love, power, imagination, understanding, will, order, enthusiasm, release, life. Accept your 12 powers. Burst forth into the dawning of a new way of life. Join with kindred spirits, David Williamson, Doctor of Ministry, Gay Lynn Williamson, Psychotherapist, and Robert Knapp, Medical Doctor, as they illustrate the power of release with people on the path who are learning and letting go.
Release is our ability to give a no thank you response to the untrue and undesirable. It's our ability to forgive, to free ourselves, to break bad habits, not be controlled, and to let go. Release uses the vacuum principle by letting go of mental and physical stuff so that God has a space and place to be realized. What is released may not be bad. It just needs to be eliminated and replaced with something better. So release is our power or ability to change our mind, to change our beliefs, to let go and let God. Well, now, what are some of the obvious limiting beliefs that we may need to release? About God. God is an angry judge. About people. We're worthless, helpless sinners destined for hell if we don't repent. About the human condition. It's a dog-eat-dog world. Revenge is sweet, and wars produce peace. This is error thinking and must be released and replaced with truth. I can know the truth that God is love, that I am loved and of infinite worth, that I am at my best when I live in cooperation and peace. Now let's say that I go into a shoe store and I try on shoes that I may want to buy and wear. Now some of these shoes look sharp, but they hurt my feet. I'm tempted to get them anyway and suffer. Does that sound familiar to anybody? However, I have a choice. I can always choose to get shoes that fit well and they're comfortable and they will wear well. Usually I'm going to do this. Maybe a salesperson or others tell me I should get a certain pair of shoes, but I'm the one who will wear them. The shoes that I let go are not for me. They may be okay for somebody else, but they're not mine. Can you see how we are continually faced with such choices to accept or let go, to buy into something or to say, no, it's not for me? I may also have some shoes that I've worn a long time and they may be great shoes, but they're worn or faded or unusable. And I don't call them bad or wicked or sinful or sick. I simply realize that I need to let them go. So I give them away or I put them in the trash. You see, releasing isn't just for what we consider to be bad stuff. We often have to let go of ways of thinking, beliefs, patterns, places, jobs, things that have been good and helpful as a part of our lives, but now it's time to give up the lesser for something greater. We can use what has been called creating a vacuum by periodically cleaning out our closets, garage, car trunk, storage locker. We give things away, or we have a yard sale, or we recycle them, or put things in circulation so that we create a vacuum to receive new good in our lives. And we all have had the experience of having to release a friend, or a loved one, or a colleague when they died. We know that this releasing is a process that is not done just quickly once and for all at the memorial service, but it's worked out through stages over a considerable period of time. We go through a letting go process and experience. A friend of ours, Dr. Melba Colgrove, co-authored an excellent book about this, How to Survive the Loss of a Love. And the authors suggest a powerful affirmation to help us in recovery from loss. I am alive. I will survive.
When you feel hurt or upset with someone, how do you let it go? Or can you let it go? Or do you keep dwelling on the incident or conversation, replaying it over and over in your mind? I know I tend to do this at times. We all do. But how can we move on? It isn't easy. And people around us may even say, oh, just let it go. Forget about it. And sometimes we can do this. And then other times, the hurt is deep and takes time and care to heal. Karen had gone through a painful separation and divorce from her husband. She had been in counseling for a while, processing through the mistakes that had happened, in communication particularly, and there was some trust issues that each of them brought to the marriage. She continued to grow even though it was painful. She persisted in releasing old behaviors and unloving ways. She did everything she could to change and improve herself. And at the time she called me, she had reached a point where she wanted a special ceremony to complete this passage in her life. Well, I gave her a few suggestions, and we joined together at her home to have a healing ceremony. She began by reading a goodbye letter she had written to her former husband, acknowledging the good times and the not so good times that they had together. Then she took the letter, and with a picture of the two of them, she ceremoniously burned them as a rite of release. And of course, there was sadness that filled her heart as she acknowledged this. And afterwards, she took the ashes and put them in the ground and planted a new tree on top of them. And with this ritual, she had said symbolically, out of the ashes of what has been springs new life. And literally, those ashes nourished that tree. And every time she came home, she would see the tree growing and branching out, just as she was growing and branching out in her life. And this simple, symbolic experience helped her to heal, to release the past, to honor the relationship, and in a wiser way, continue to grow instead of staying stuck. She marked the passage with a ceremony of release and moved forward in her life. It took time. It took a lot of processing, but eventually new, happier, healthier relationships came into her life. What is holding you back? What can you release today that could help you to be free and happier? Let it go and experience that freedom now.
Our power of release and elimination expresses physically through our colon, which is this gray structure here on this model. And the colon is also called the large intestine. Just as we use our power of release to let go of unhealthy and outworn thoughts, feelings, and memories, so does the colon eliminate physical waste, toxins, and unneeded substances from the body. Undigested food, including fiber or roughage, water, mineral salts, pigments, and some toxic items move into the cecum from the small intestine. And then most of the water and the minerals moving through the colon are reabsorbed in the ascending colon and the first half of the transverse colon. Now, isn't it interesting that as part of the eliminatory process, the colon first reabsorbs water and essential mineral salts? It doesn't just release and remove everything that flows into it. Rather, it first retains and reabsorbs that which is still needed by the body, and then it removes the rest. We can take a lesson from this wisdom of our body. Sometimes in our zeal to shed old habits and to remove unhealthy ways of thinking and feeling, we end up eliminating the good as well as the error. As the saying goes, we throw out the baby with the bathwater. When people have difficulties with their power of elimination, they may develop problems with their colon. For example, Jerry had irritable bowel syndrome, a mixture of pain and diarrhea, constipation, and nausea. Like many people with this syndrome, he had nagging concerns about family problems. difficulties at work and financial challenges, he could not let go of his worries. Furthermore, he was highly critical of others, focusing on and speaking bluntly about what he thought were their faults. So one day his boss pointed out his critical nature, and he asked him to change. Now initially, the stress of this revelation led to a worsening of Jerry's colon problems, more pain, cramping, and diarrhea. And then as he took a serious look at and modified the way that he thought about and treated others, his symptoms diminished. However, instead of just moderating his critical responses, he went to the other extreme, and he tried not to say anything negative about anyone, to not even point out obvious conditions that needed correction for the good of all involved. And he became too critical of himself. Once again, his bowel symptoms returned and worsened. Finally, he readjusted and he found a middle way. He recognized his critical behavior and he released it, but he also spoke clearly about his insights and feelings towards others without putting them down. And sure enough, his colon distress subsided because he had learned to use his power of release in a healthy and balanced way.
I went to a workshop with John Bradshaw, and he asked us to practice saying no to people who kept asking us to do things. Now, I often have difficulty saying no to people, so I had to really work at that assignment. No. We often have to renounce negative things that we think or say about ourselves, our negative self-talk. Knowing the power of words, I work on not saying certain things that I used to throw out all the time, like, give me a break. I don't want to break something. So I've stopped affirming that, putting it out there to my listening subconscious. So release requires honesty, humility, and the courage to face what I may be doing to myself or others. I let it go by admitting it, talking it out, diffusing it, and forgiving myself. I make courageous, honest self-analysis a continuing part of my spiritual practice. It's positive to let go of the negative. A major part of learning often is recognizing and releasing what we may have believed to be true, but which is really not true. We've all been exposed to a lot of superstitions, old wives' tales, flat earth views, and error consciousness. Sometimes I hear people say, just hold a positive thought, just keep knowing things are going to work out. Well, that's fine, except it leaves something out. I may have to do some releasing before all those positive thoughts and affirmations can have a place and take hold. Dumping and pumping these positive ideas into my mind is like putting fresh, clean water into a dirty old sink, full of greasy water. I have to release the old water to make a place for the new good that I want. I can't just keep pouring in positive thinking and affirmations and expect them to work. I first have to clean out my mental and emotional house. I pull the plug on my old, outworn, negative, limited patterns of thinking, speaking, and feeling, acting and choosing. The dirt may be stubborn and require some steady work on my part to loosen it up and let it go. Some old prejudices, superstitions, self-discounting, self-destructive patterns, they don't disappear or get released overnight. They may be stubborn and multi-layered and may take time and effort to cleanse. But no one would try to wash their dishes in a sink full of old, messy water, would they? Or that's been standing there for days. We know that that water has to be drained out and replaced to effectively do the dishes. And so we too have to keep letting go of what needs to be released or transcended. And this is a two-stage process of change. And it also needs to have a flow of fresh, clean water to replace what has been released. It's not enough just to stop or cleanse something. Then we must add that positive good in its place. And we recommend using statements of release and affirmation, such as the one from our 12 Powers in You book. I let go of an outworn belief, just as I would take out a burned out light bulb and replace it with one that works. Life is a flow. Life is dynamic. We are constantly changing. Every day is a new day. No one can be static or fixed. The past is not necessarily bad any more than the old water in the sink is bad. We release and replace. We reinvent ourselves every day in some way. We find God anew in different ways. Every day, we stay in the creative flow of life.
Who or what do you need to stop fretting and worrying about? Well, when I ask myself this question, most often it's my family or the kids I'm worried about, no matter how old they are. Well, a young mother came to me a number of years ago, and she was concerned about her teenage son, Michael. She discovered that Michael had been skipping school, hanging out with the wrong crowd, and he was making failing grades. Well, a recommendation was made to place Michael in an at-risk program at his high school. And as a part of a special service at our church, the mother had received a Phoenix medallion. I had created these and had these Phoenix medallions minted. And I put the title of a poem on it by one of my favorite poets, Maya Angelou, "And Still I Rise." The phoenix comes from the Egyptian mythology, and the miraculous bird was said to live for 500 years. And then after its death, on an altar of fire, it rose in youthful freshness to live again. Well, the phoenix is often used as a symbol of immortality and the rising out of the ashes to new life, to a fresh beginning. Well, the mother gave her son the Phoenix medallion and told him that she believed in him. She said that she knew he could rise out of any difficulties and that she loved him very much. Well, Michael accepted the medallion and his mother's love and confidence. And he started in the at-risk program and joined other youths on the verge of dropping out. Each year, the students in this program chose an emblem and motto for their class, and all the students were asked to participate in creating a design that would be inspirational to help them all to succeed. Well, since Michael had just received the Phoenix medallion, he invested a great deal of time drawing a beautiful, large rendition of the Phoenix with the quote, "And still I rise." The class voted on the best emblem, and Michael's Phoenix made the semifinals. And in the final presentation, Michael read Maya Angelou's poem to his classmates. The final vote was taken, and the announcement was made, and Michael stood in awe as they voted his drawing and motto the winner. He'd never won anything in his life. And the affirmation from his classmates inspired him as he realized that he had positively influenced and helped the people around him. He was not just Michael the troublemaker, he was a talented artist whose drawing had inspired his class. For the first time, he could see how his life and his art could have a great impact on others. He discovered in his adversity, at a time when he was ready to quit, his talent and his power. Michael's mom gave medallions to all the students, and the beautiful phoenix was hung on the wall of the classroom, and all the students signed their names around it. Out of the ashes of failure and doubt came a new vision of hope and another way of life. You and I may be like Michael, facing our own challenges, failures, and trying times. The simple truth is, we can release the past, no matter what the circumstance, and rise up and begin again. We can literally recreate ourselves and start a new life. Just like the ancient mythology of the phoenix, we rise out of the ashes and experience a fresh start. Remember that wonderful phrase of hope, "And still I rise." I am willing to release beliefs and attitudes that no longer serve me. I make room for the new growth, and still I rise.
The power of release and elimination also expresses in our body as our urinary system, and this includes our kidneys, our ureter, our bladder, and our urethra. Now, every cell in our body produces metabolic byproducts or wastes that diffuse into the blood, which carries them to the two kidneys. And the kidneys filter the blood and remove these waste products, as well as excess water and minerals, bacterial toxins, and toxic chemicals. At the same time, however, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, needed water, minerals, and other nutrients are retained in the blood. So here again, we see that in the elimination process, in the body as well as in the mind, we are to retain all that is good, vital, healthy, and life-promoting, even as we release that which is in excess, unhealthy, toxic, and no longer needed. In the kidneys, the filtering of the blood produces urine, which travels down from the kidneys, down through the ureters to the bladder. And there it's stored until during urination, it is released through the urethra and out of the body. 1/4 of the blood that is pumped by the heart down the aorta travels through the renal arteries to our kidneys. And this shows just how vital our kidneys are to our health, how important it is that our kidneys continually filter the blood. Now, in like manner, we are wise when we give sufficient daily attention and energy to our power of release. We are always mentally filtering our thoughts and feelings. We are always changing, growing, adapting, and letting go of the old to make way for the new. Change is life, and life is full of change. Now, what happens if we do resist and refuse to let go of the old, unneeded, unhealthy parts of ourselves? This may lead to infections of the urethra, bladder, or kidneys. There may be cysts or tumors of the kidneys or bladder, or kidney stones. And if this happens with you, please get the best professional health care. At the same time, however, focus on your power of release to rebalance your urinary system. Here's an example of how this works. Sheila was having one bladder infection after another, and in counseling, she initially seemed to be easygoing and pleasant. But beneath the surface, we discovered that she was filled with anger and hostility that she had held onto and repressed for years. Beneath her calm, proper, sweet exterior, she was really ticked off, peeved, and, well, I'm sure you get the idea. Now, of course, I suggested that she continue to treat her bladder infections with proper medical care. However, I also asked her to visualize with each glass of water that she drank that she was flushing out the old hurts that kept her so irritated and inflamed. And we worked on ways to address her anger and her split way of being nice on the surface and seething underneath. She made the needed changes over a period of many months, and the bladder infections diminished along with her anger. What do you have that you have held on to that you now need to let go? Release it so that you can bring new balance into all aspects of your life.
I exercise my ability to say no to what is not for me, and yes to what is for the good of all. I can work on myself to release and learn and love again.
Release and elimination expresses physically
Just as
through
my
our
colon eliminates physical wastes, so do I release outworn and unhealthy thoughts, feelings, and memories. I release the old before I add in the new. I let go and let God flow. I can rise like the phoenix to new opportunities. I remember, and still I rise. My urinary system removes liquid wastes. In like manner, I flush out the pain of the past so that I can begin anew.
A young woman named Michelle came to me and asked me if she could start a Narcotics Anonymous group at our church. And she said that she'd been going to a group across town and would like to have a fellowship on our side of the city. Michelle said to me, "David, I never told you how I let go of cocaine. I came one year to a New Year's Eve burning bowl service, and it was a couple of years ago, and we were supposed to write on a paper what we wanted to let go of in our life. And I was still using cocaine at the time." She said, "My life was a disaster. When you asked me, what do you want to let go of tonight, to release? I heard inside me the words, "I think I want to let go of cocaine." I didn't even have a pen in my purse, so I wrote it with my lipstick liner. I was shaking all the way up to the burning bowl, but that one sincere desire was enough. And that night became a turning point for the rest of my life. I saw myself letting go of this habit, this terrible habit that was ruining my life. I saw myself free. I knew I could find help. And I knew that God was with me in this and would bring me through, helping me overcome. I put the paper in the fire and I saw it burn. I took a deep breath of freedom and walked away from it forever. I joined Narcotics Anonymous. I went back to college. I started a whole new life. Well, I saw her when I went back to speak at our former church years later, and she was a new person, clean and sober, living a whole new life. In your overcomings, one sincere desire can be the turning point in creating a successful life. Always remember, you are empowered from within to live fully and freely now. You are free.
And may we be released from all those feelings that would harm us. May we have the will to give them up and get them gone. For heavy are the satchels full of anger and false promise. May we have the strength to put them down. May the light of love be shining deep within your spirit. May the torch of mercy clear the path and show the way. May the horn of plenty sound so everyone can hear it. May the light of love be with you every day. And may we wish the best for everyone that we encounter. May we swallow pride and may we do away with fear. For it's only what we do not know that we have grown afraid of, and only what we do not choose to hear. May the light of love be shining deep within your spirit. May the torch of mercy clear the path and show the way. May the horn of plenty sound so everyone can hear it. May the light of love be with you.